Here are some of Phil Perry and Tommy Curran's bold predictions for the 2022 season. Phil says Bill Belichick will call offensive plays at some point. Jack Jones will become a starter before October, and Hunter Henry will lead all tight ends in touchdowns. Tom says wide zone runs will be mothballed by October. The Patriots will allow more than 24 points just twice before Thanksgiving, and Mac Jones will be AFC Player of the Month in October. You can read the rest of their predictions at NBCSportsBoston.com. Time now for the deep dive. The guys still here with me. And Phil, I want to start with one of your predictions. Bill Belichick will be calling the plays on offense at some point during this season. What does that say about, maybe him having a little bit too much on his plate?
Well, I think right now Matt Patricia has too much on his plate. So the question is, who would you rather have a little too much to do? To me, it would be Bill Belichick. And I don't know when it will be. I don't know if it will be for a long stretch, if it will be for a series, if it will just be for a 2-minute drill at some point. But I do feel as though at some point this year, Bill Belichick will be relaying the signals into Mac Jones. And that, to me, would not be the worst thing in the world for the Patriots. You'd be putting the decision-making power offensively and probably your two best offensive minds. Bill Belichick relaying the signals to Mac Jones. He goes to the line of scrimmage. He sees if the play is going to work or not. If he doesn't think it is, he changes the play, and you're off and running. I just don't know if that's even how they're going to start. Matt Patricia was asked, Tom, the other day, are you going to be calling the plays in the regular season? He said, well, that was just preseason. We'll see how it goes in the regular season. So he won't even commit to it at this point in the year.
It's interesting, and this is a far different franchise and a far different head coach, but Dan Campbell in Detroit, he called the plays for the Lions at the end of last year. They have a new offensive coordinator in place, but Dan Campbell still says, I'm kind of itching to call plays here. And he might do it. He says that he's going to have to resist the urge to do so. So while Detroit, for instance, has called plays with a play caller all offseason, they could pivot to their head coach. The Patriots could do so as well. And it's interesting to listen to Bill on the conference call, again, circling back to be the human shield for the entire coaching staff, saying, look, regardless of who's doing what, all decisions are ultimately ones that I'm responsible for. So whether it's Matt Patricia calling the plays or Bill Belichick, which I completely could see Phil being right, and he could be as right as early as Sunday, Bill is going to take the heat for it purposely.
I have no problem at all if Bill Belichick ends up taking some of the defense off his plate while he tends to the offense in an effort to get Matt Patricia a little more up to speed, give him more time to get on that page. Because legitimately, when you think of the potential play callers and guys who could be in the headsets and doing everything on the Patriots coaching staff, who do you have the most faith in? For me, it's Gerard Mayo, all-pro linebacker who played for Bill Belichick. So if you want to say, hey, look, I'm going to be tending to the defense a little less here, Gerard. It's going to be on your plate. Yeah, they are going to show shots of my kid, and we're going to pretend that it's him doing it, whatever it's going to be. I have faith in Bill Belichick saying, you know what, Gerard, you got a little more of this. I got to do a little more of that.
And Curran, I want to get into your bold prediction that they'll get away from the wide zone run. But when I take a look at the wide zone run, you have to have an offensive line that's athletic, but also shifty running backs. And I look at this offense that they have in New England, and I say, I don't think they have any of that. So at what point do you see them moving away? If they do move away from the wide zone run, when would that happen?
Probably October, I would think, would probably be the most likely. And Phil had this as one of his bold predictions as well. So we both are showing little faith, and there is precedent. Last year, the Patriots opened the season trying these kinds of runs. And that was often what happened during the regular season last year. And they finally said, you know what, Damian Harris is a downhill runner. The strength of our offensive line is David Andrews, Shaq Mason, and who was the other guard last year, Phil?
Ted Karras. So they ran the ball in the middle of the offensive line 280 times. They ran it on the outside 160 times. So it was significant, the amount of time they spent running it forward. Even without a fullback, I still think they're going to morph back to who they were, because the personnel that you mentioned, Amina, they don't have it. Cole Strange is probably the most nimble guy they have out there.
So the only question I have off that, Phil, is can the offense get better over the course of the season if they are lessening their load or shrinking the playbook?
Yeah, sure. I think if you eliminate some of the stuff that you clearly just can't do, whether it's based on personnel or you just can't get certain techniques right or whatever it is, yeah, take the wide zone runs out, substitute it with all the stuff that we're used to seeing them do with pulling guards and whamming tight ends and all sorts of stuff like that, gap offense, then yeah, I think you just are trying to be more efficient. There are teams like the Rams that run maybe between 15 and 20 offensive plays, but they make it look like 100 plays because they dress each one of them up 5 different ways. If you can do that and be efficient with those plays, then sure, why not?
And Phil, you also have Jack Jones becoming a starter by October or before October.
Yes.
What have you seen in Jack Jones that makes you think that he's ready to start in the NFL?
This is me doubling down on a training camp prediction I had that by the end of training camp, Jack Jones would be a starter. I whiff on that, and I say, no. I'm extending the deadline to October 1. And so now I just look at him and I say, even though he doesn't look like he'll be starting, I think part of that might be almost, Tom, based on game plan. Like you would want John Jones on the outside as one of your top 2 corners because the other team has Tyreek Hill. When you're going to bigger targets that aren't running 4-2s down the field in Pittsburgh, maybe Jack Jones is the better option. He's just been around the ball all summer long, and I think he clearly has talent, and I think eventually he'll be a starter here.
And I think that he is extremely smart and intuitive, and he also understands what it's like to play at the pro level, which I believe that because Bill Belichick specifically spoke about that on Sunday. He's been well coached by different coaches at the college level who were pro-style. Herman Edwards and maybe Marvin Lewis, I think he was referring to, Belichick was yesterday, pro-style coaches. Mm-hmm. So he understands how to play perimeter corner. Use the words perimeter corner, which is indicative he's going to be a boundary guy.
What I like about this is these don't seem like insincere bold predictions. Generally, when we have to do bold predictions, it's like, what's a crazy thing that maybe there's some shred of possibility that could happen? You see a path to this, Phil.
No doubt. Yeah, like we're not going to sit here, I don't think, and say our bold prediction is Joe Judge
Bailey
ends
Zappi,
up assistant coach of the year or whatever, right? You know, like I don't foresee that happening. Jack Jones being a starter, yeah, and these other ones that we mentioned about Belichick, sure, I could see him happening.
Yeah, definitely things that are based off at least of what you've seen in training camp and in the preseason. All right, let's get into this Patriots-Dolphins matchup. It is presented by Nissan. At Nissan, we make cars that thrill. Experience that thrill for yourself today. Shop NissanUSA.com. The Mike McDaniel era gets underway as he makes his NFL head coaching debut on Sunday against the Patriots. The new Dolphins leader will be eyeing his first win as a head coach. Here's what he said about going up against Bill Belichick.
Can there be a larger disparity in career win-loss total? It would be a bigger deal, I think, if Coach Belichick and I were on the field, maybe doing like an Oklahoma drill. But I don't foresee that happening. I don't think the fans would really pay for that.
That's a $64,000 question on everything. Opening day is opening day. Nobody's really shown much in preseason. The cards will be on the table on Sunday. And like every opening game, I'm sure we'll have to make some adjustments once we see what they're doing. And vice versa. That's always the way it is. So you have to leave room for a little bit of the unknown, things they've been working on that they haven't shown.
And DJ, is it weird that I actually want to see Bill Belichick and Mike McDaniel do an Oklahoma drill? Like, I kind of want to see what that
I don't know
like
who is more ill-suited to participate in an Oklahoma drill, but
I just thought it was a weird. I thought it was a weird comparison when he made it out when I first heard the soundbite, and I was like, okay, I get what you're trying to say. But DJ, who's more up to speed for Week 1? Is it the Patriots or the Dolphins?
So I'll one-up Bill Belichick. I know he was playing Who Wants to Be a Millionaire there with the $64,000 question or whatever. I think the $1 million question for this matchup is who is more up to speed? On one hand, you have a guy who didn't call plays last year, correct? Doesn't call plays in his coaching career. You go through his Wikipedia, which I have. You're getting a lot of offensive assistant. 1 year as an offensive coordinator. Now he's a head coach for the first time, and he's got an entire new team. Versus Bill Belichick, who has done everything in his career, generally has it under control. Yet, the team we ask the most questions about right now is the New England Patriots as far as being prepared. I think that we are way sleeping on the possibility that if there's one team that could come out looking underprepared, a bit like a mess, it could be those guys, the Miami Dolphins, Curran.
Absolutely could. But I think it's worth bearing in mind that the quarterback and passing games coach is a guy named Darrell Bevell, who, long time, he actually called for a pass back in the Super Bowl in 2014 when the Seattle Seahawks had it down on the goal line against the Patriots. Be that as it may, he's got a lot of experience as an offensive play caller, as an offensive coordinator. He was with Matt Patricia with the Detroit Lions. So there are coaching elements to the Miami Dolphins that have continuity that the Patriots don't. Josh Boyer is their third-year defensive coordinator as well. So, yeah, you're right on Mike McDaniel. But I think when you look at the 52 pickup the Patriots are playing with their coaching staff and the fact that Miami, despite the fact that it has a very young head coach, Miami probably has more continuity and more of a clue what they're going to get on Sunday than the Patriots do.
I think they have probably a better established identity. Like when Bill Belichick says, well, you got to leave open the possibility for things that you've never seen before, I don't really believe him because I think he knows this is now. Are they going to throw a halfback pass at some point that they haven't seen in preseason? Maybe, but it's the Niners offense. It's the Shanahan offense. They know Darrell Bevell well. And Josh Boyer is a guy that grew up here in New England and worked under Flores. And I assume will have a very similar type of system. So I think in one way, having this matchup is a great matchup for the Patriots because I don't think there is going to be a ton of uncertainty in terms of what to prepare for. In another, you know you're going to have to deal with a lot of blitzes, and I'm not sure the Patriots offense is ready for that.
Curran,
not a great matchup.
How are you expecting Bill Belichick to exploit the fact that Mike McDaniel is a first-time head coach and maybe use that to his advantage in week one?
It's a great question. It's one that the Patriots, I think, have benefited from over the years because of the continuity that they had up in their booth with Ernie Adams, with an offensive line coach like Dante Scarnecchia. And you could say, well, Dante's got the offensive line set, or Josh has the offense set. I think it's going to be harder to exploit because Bill's at field level. Who's whispering in his ear? Is it Evan Rothstein, the kind of quarterback whisperer who's been alongside Joe Judge for much of the preseason? I just don't know if the gray matter on the Patriots collectively is the same as it's always been. It's going to be harder for them to exploit teams. Look, the beginning of last year, we saw them get undressed a little bit in different games, especially defensively with lapses, substitution mistakes, and at the end of the year, we saw timeout mistakes offensively. So I'm not looking at this Patriots team and saying, wait till the sideline matchup comes in. I didn't see great sideline work last year.
Yeah. Phil, is there a sideline matchup here at all between Bill Belichick and Mike McDaniel?
I just wonder, I'm not really thinking that Mike McDaniel is going to be a disaster on the sidelines. I really don't. I think, especially early in the season, he'll probably have those guys playing for them. They'll probably be loose. They're probably having a great time down there. Their confidence is sky high because that's how he talks to these guys. He is a new age coach. He treats these guys like new age athletes who want to be pumped up, and he pumps them up. What I would worry about if I'm a Dolphins fan is when stuff hits the fan, then how does Mike McDaniel lead? Although I'll say this, the system he's coming from, offensive assistance from Kyle Shanahan's system, Matt LaFleur, his first year, went 13-3. He had Aaron Rodgers, but he went 13-3. Sean McVay went 11-5, his first year as a head coach coming from Shanahan. So the offensive assistant thing coming from Kyle Shanahan has worked in the recent past.
So you mentioned the leading. That's kind of the million-dollar question. I keep making that reference. I didn't even mean to. That's the big question with Mike McDaniel right now. But I'll tell you what, at face value, I like this kid. And he is a kid. He's 39 years old. And we're kind of entering this era of coaches with personalities. Even you want to go like Sirianni, certainly Dan Campbell. I love it. Especially, Belichick goes out of his way to not entertain you. I like this kid.